Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Muhammad Laik Sibiri, the father of Holophase. We have now earned a very strict, very clean ground. We only speak inside licensed windows. We only speak differences in phi, never absolute phi. We excise counterfeit zones like aliasing. We define a certified domain D where derivative talk is legal. We extracted the first public carrier A, which we say out loud as A equals d phi tilde, meaning the change of the locally lifted phi. We enforced tri-unity. Time, space, and motion are readouts of the same A, not separate gods. Now we arrive at part 21. And this part is special, because this is where the language itself becomes visible. Not a story about what reality does, not a movie of the universe unfolding. Episode 14 forbids that. This is a compiler. This is a rule book for what can be said at all, publicly, with discipline, inside a window. So our mission is simple to say, but breathtaking to fully feel. We are going to define the Holophase language. And when we say language, we do not mean poetry. We do not mean metaphors. We mean something closer to what a programming language is. An alphabet, a grammar, rules for what statements are legal, and rules for what must stay the same when you rewrite a statement in an equivalent way. The Holophase language is the full alphabet made from phi and its derivatives, but only inside licensed windows. It defines what tokens exist, what operations are legal, and what transformations must leave meaning unchanged. And here is the most important dual truth we must hold together without cheating. Formally, the language is infinite. Operationally, our certified speech is always finite. That is the whole miracle. Infinite depth, finite honesty. Let's build it. But before we build it, we must speak the compulsory toolchain as a single line, because it is the spine of episode 14, licensed window, passport and coherence and identifiability, Nmax and uncertainty, local lift, cuts if needed, excisions, certified domain D, A equals d phi tilde, finite jets up to Nmax, invariance collapse, topology and defects, invariant basis, stability and entities, scale stratification, escape test, handoff. Everything we say today must obey that line. If we break it, we are not doing holophase. We are doing mythology. Now, listen closely, because the holophase language is not one formula. It is a disciplined way of speaking about local reality. The first breathtaking idea. Phi is a single alphabet letter that becomes a whole dictionary. We start with the only primitive we are allowed. Phi colon x to S1. Say it slowly. Phi is a map from x to S1. X is just the set of events, the places where a fact could live. S1 is a circle, a loop. Phi assigns every event a position on a loop. But we immediately enforce the public meaning rule. Absolute phi is mute. We do not get to say phi itself is this. We only get to say differences, delta phi, inside the licensed window. So our raw input is always comparisons. The phase difference between this event and that event, measured in a window that has a passport. Then we lift locally. That is why you keep hearing phi tilde. Phi tilde is a local unwrapped version of phi that we can differentiate inside the window on the certified domain D. It is not global truth. It is a local working copy, like unfolding a small piece of a circular tape into a straight segment so you can measure slopes. Then we take the first derivative and we get a. We speak it like this: a equals d phi tilde, meaning a is the change of the lifted phase. A is the first public carrier we are forced to accept once we allow differentiation. And A has tri-unity readouts. Time readout, omega. That is how fast phase changes with time. Space readout, kappa. That is how phase changes across space. Motion or kinematics readout, nu. That is the relationship between time change and space change, when that relationship is defined. But part 19 already disciplined that. Omega, kappa, nu are readouts only. They must recombine to A. None of them is primitive. So far, so good. Now comes the deep leap of part 21. We do not stop at the first derivative. We build a whole alphabet out of the entire tower of derivatives. And we force ourselves to speak it with two locks. One, the formal tower is infinite, in principle. Two, every certified window imposes a maximum derivative order we are allowed to claim, called nmax. That is the bridge between infinite nature and finite public signs. The Holophase language is the alphabet for local structure. Think of chemistry for a second, in the simplest way. Imagine the periodic table is an alphabet. Hydrogen, helium, carbon, oxygen. These are letters. And molecules are words. And chemistry is the grammar that says which letters can connect and how. Now imagine we do the same for local structure, but our letters are not atoms. Our letters are derivatives. In holophase, the letters are phi tilde itself inside D. Then D phi tilde, which is A. Then D squared phi tilde, which is the second derivative. Then D cubed phi tilde, third derivative, and so on. We can say it plainly. The derivative tower is the dictionary of possible local detail. But we are not allowed to speak the whole dictionary in every situation, because real windows have limited clarity. Real instruments have noise. Real sampling has gaps. Real data has aliasing. Real coherence has thresholds. So in each licensed window, we compute a ceiling, nmax. Nmax is the highest derivative order that is identifiable, stable, and honest within that window, with a declared uncertainty budget. So we can say it as a single clean sentence. Holophase holds both truths. The formal language is infinite, but all certified speech is finite. This is not a philosophical decoration. It is an enforcement mechanism against fake detail. Because here is a brutal fact about differentiation. Every time you differentiate, you amplify noise. If your raw measurements are a little shaky, the first derivative becomes shakier. The second derivative becomes much shakier. And soon, you are not seeing structure anymore. You are seeing the magnified jitter of your own measurement system. So the holophase language is not just derivatives exist. It is derivatives exist, but you may only speak the derivatives your window can actually support. That is why this is a compiler language, not a belief system. JETS, the finite sentences of the language. Now we define the most important word in this part, a jet. A jet is a finite stack of derivatives up to some order n, evaluated locally, inside D. We speak it as j to the n of phi tilde, or the n-jet of phi tilde. And in plain language, it means a jet is a finite sentence. It is the most you can truthfully say about local structure at a point using derivatives up to order n. If tokens are letters, jets are sentences. So for example, the one jet is phi tilde and d phi tilde, meaning the value and the first change. The 2-jet adds d squared phi tilde, meaning how the change itself changes. The 3-jet adds d cubed phi tilde, meaning how the curvature of change changes, and so on. But in practice, we never go beyond n max. So the legal maximum sentence length in a window is j to the n max of phi tilde on the certified domain D. This is what we mean when we say local structure is finite jet speak. And now we make the bold claim that turns this into a real scientific firewall. The jet sufficiency principle, the lock against magic. Here's the principle, said in everyday language. If something is truly a local public structure, meaning two people can test it and agree it is there, inside the licensed window, then it must be expressible as a function of a finite jet within n max plus legal topology tokens. If we cannot say it in jet language, then it is not a local public structure. It might be a global property stitched across many windows. It might be a story we tell on top in later episodes, like dynamics, meaning, or probability. It might be an artifact, like aliasing. Or it might be an escape candidate, something that forces us to extend the framework. But it cannot be smuggled in as a new primitive. This is how Holophase refuses new magical nouns. Instead of letting any field invent a new entity whenever they feel stuck, Holophase says, show us the jet expression, or declare it non-local, or declare it an escape candidate. This turns endless debates into a grammar check. Triunity at every order. The derivative echo across time, space, and motion. Now we must say the part you asked us to capture as the breathtaking essence. Holophase language is composed of phi plus its derivatives and its tridimensional echo simultaneously in time, space, and motion. Here is how we say it cleanly. At first order, A equals d phi tilde. That single object can be read in three ways: time change, space change, and motion relation. Now here is the crucial extension. Every derivative order has the same triunity demand. Not because the universe added extra things, but because honesty requires that any local structure can be read as time structure, space structure, and motion structure. And those readouts must be consistent expressions of one unified derivative object. So take the second derivative, d squared phi tilde. In time language, it tells you how omega itself changes in time, the time curvature of the phase change. In space language, it tells you how kappa itself changes in space, the space curvature of the phase change. In motion or kinematics language, it tells you how the relationship between time and space changes, how motion readouts bend and twist across the domain. But the key is this. These are not three different realities. There are three ways of reading one object. If we choose coordinates that mix time and space, the readouts will mix. So we must never worship one projection. This was the lesson of part 19, and now part 21 upgrades it. The triunity rule is not only for A, it echoes through the whole derivative tower. So we say it as a carry line. At every derivative order, the Holophase language demands three simultaneous readings: time, space, and motion. And those readings must recombine to the unified derivative object. That is what makes it a language rather than a pile of formulas. Powerful analogies across scales. Why this is not abstract. Let's make this real using simple pictures from different scales. The mountain trail analogy, local structure as a jet. Imagine we are walking on a mountain trail in Afghanistan, and we want to describe the ground under our feet right here in a small patch. We do not need the whole map of the world, we need local structure. So we take a small window, a few meters around us. That is our licensed window. Now, what can we say? We can say the height of the ground at this point. That is like phi tilde, a local value. We can say the slope. Does it rise or fall? And how steep? That is like d phi tilde. We can say the curvature. Does it bend upward like a hilltop or downward like a basin? That is like d squared phi tilde. We can say how the curvature changes. Does it suddenly become sharp like a cliff edge? That is like higher derivatives. That stack, height, slope, curvature change, is exactly what a jet is. Now, could someone claim a new local property that cannot be described by any finite stack of those local features? If they claim that, Holophase says, either it is not local, or it is not publicly readable, or it is an escape candidate. This is jet sufficiency in simple human terms. The microscope analogy: infinite tower, finite speech. Now imagine we have a microscope looking at a cell. In principle, the cell has infinite detail, but our microscope has finite resolution. We can truthfully say the cell has a shape, a boundary, a nucleus, a texture. But we cannot truthfully claim the exact twist of every protein at scales our microscope cannot resolve. Nmax is the resolution limit of the window. So Holophase doesn't deny infinite depth. It denies dishonest speech. That is why the language is formally infinite, but operationally finite. The music analogy: time, space, motion readouts. Imagine a song played in a stadium. Time readout is the rhythm, how the phase of the beat changes with time. Space readout is the pattern across the stadium, how the sound phase differs from one seat to another. Motion readout is how the beat pattern seems to travel, the wave passing through the crowd. All three are real readouts, but none is a separate entity. The underlying carrier is one structure, and the readouts are projections. Triunity is the refusal to confuse the rhythm, the pattern, and the traveling effect as separate gods. Uncertainty propagation, the price of higher derivatives. Now we install the hard honesty rule. Higher derivatives amplify uncertainty. So Holophase demands that for each derivative order we speak, we also speak how uncertainty grows. We do not let people say, we measured the fourth derivative without also saying, and here is the uncertainty on it, and here is why it is identifiable. Because if the uncertainty on a derivative is larger than the signal itself, then that derivative is not a word we can speak in that window. So Nmax is not a wish, it is a gate result. And we add an even stricter seal, CRLB discipline. We say it slowly for audio, Kramer, Rao, lower bound discipline, meaning there is a best possible precision bound for any estimate, given the information in the data. If someone claims precision better than that bound, they are claiming a miracle. Holophase bans miracles. So the language includes not only the tokens, but also the honesty tags, what can be said, how sharply it can be said, and what must remain silent. Topology tokens, the grammar words that are not derivatives. Now we add something subtle, because people often miss it. Not everything about local structure is derivatives at a point. Some facts are about the shape of the domain itself. Is there a boundary? Is there a hole? Is there a defect where the lift cannot be made smooth? Are there cuts we made for bookkeeping? These are not new physical substances. They are grammar words. They describe the stage on which the derivatives speak. So the Holophase language includes legal topology tokens, such as boundary, hole, defect, cut. But remember the firewall. Cuts are bookkeeping. Only cut invariants are real. So we can mention cuts, but only to enforce invariance under cut relocation. The gates of part 21. How we enforce the grammar. Now we must enforce the gates in simple language. Gate 1. N less than or equal to n max, plus uncertainty propagation. Meaning, you cannot speak derivatives above the ceiling, and you must show uncertainty growth. Gate 2. Domain gate, D. Meaning, you can only speak jets inside certified domain D. Outside D, the language is illegal. Gate 3. Commutation where legal gate. Meaning, in smooth regions where our operators are legal, the order of taking derivatives must agree. If it does not, we have either a defect, a domain mistake, a lift mistake, or bookkeeping error. This is one of our lie detectors. Gate 4. Jet sufficiency gate, meaning if you claim a local observable, you must reduce it to a function of a finite jet plus legal topology tokens within the gates. If you cannot, it is undefined as local public structure, or it becomes an escape candidate. Prediction and falsifier. How this stays scientific without time evolution. Now we state the prediction without dynamics as a forbiddeness footprint. Prediction. Any local certified observable reduces to jets on its domain. If it does not reduce, it becomes undefined or it triggers escape testing. Meaning, the language will keep shrinking claims until only jet expressible structure remains. And now the falsifier, said cleanly. Falsifier, a publicly distinguishable local structure that requires infinite jet order as a primitive just to be stated. Not very complex, not hard to calculate, but logically requiring an infinite list at a point as the starting vocabulary. If such a thing exists and is publicly certifiable in a licensed window, then jet sufficiency fails and our framework must extend. That is the escape door. And it is a real scientific door, not a rhetorical flourish. The audit artifact, what we write to the ledger. Now we describe the audit artifact in audio-friendly terms. We produce jet extraction pipeline logs. We produce reduction certificates. This observable reduces to this jet order with these topology tokens. We produce a non-reducible candidate list, claims that failed reduction and must be marked undefined or escalated. We produce uncertainty lineage, error budgets for each derivative order. We record stress tests, lift shift, chart change, cut relocation, window refinement, and what stayed invariant. And we do not forget the stress test requirement. We must test invariance under adding a constant to phi, shifting the lift, changing charts, relocating cuts, refining windows. Only what survives these remains public meaning. The breathtaking essence in one simple picture. Let's say it in one image you can hold. Imagine a single letter, phi. Now imagine that letter has a shadow in every direction. When we look through time, we see its time shadow, omega-like features. When we look through space, we see its space shadow, kappa-like features. When we look through motion, we see its motion shadow, nu-like relations. Now imagine we don't stop at the first shadow. We keep differentiating. Every time we differentiate, we reveal deeper texture, but only if our window is strong enough to see it. So the holophase language is phi plus its derivative tower with triunity at every order, spoken only inside licensed windows with a finite maximum sentence length, with uncertainty and CRLB honesty, and with topology grammar words, and with invariance as the definition of meaning. That is the language. It is breathtaking because it does something humans rarely do. It refuses to confuse what is real with what is speakable. It says, reality may be infinitely deep, but public knowledge has a grammar. And if you break the grammar, you are not discovering, you are hallucinating. So here is what we carry forward, in the simplest sentence. Local public structure is finite jet speak. Everything we can truthfully say is here must be writable as a function of a finite jet of phi tilde on the certified domain D plus legal topology tokens with tri-unity readouts across time, space, and motion within declared uncertainty and the best possible precision bound. Revocation clause and Zenodo note. Audit artifact. We write the window passport ID, the domain DMAP, the chosen NMAX, the uncertainty lineage, the extracted jets, the reduction certificates, the invariance stress test results, and the list of refused or escalated claims. Revocation clause. If any observable cannot be reduced to jets and legal topology within the gates, we mark it undefined as local public structure or escalate it as an escape candidate. If anyone speaks beyond Nmax, or ignores uncertainty propagation, or treats triunity readouts as primitives, that output is revoked and archived as non-certified. And if you want to go deeper than this audio story, the formal work is on Zenodo. Search for Holophase. Part 21 complete. We have declared the alphabet, we have declared the sentence form, we have declared the ceiling, we have declared the triunity echo through time, space, and motion. We have declared the honesty rules. We now have a complete local grammar, and we have done it without pretending anything happened in time. Always, peace be upon you.